TVGrace presents the inexpressible words of God, the gospel of grace, on the lips of Jesus Christ man. Abba, Father.
I have talked a lot here that we are dead to sin, right? So then, the reason that we are dead to sin is that sin has died. Listen closely. Sin had death, and a dead man can't do nothing against you. Let's look at it biblically. Romans chapter 7. Romans chapter 7. When we read the book to the Romans, you know who was in Rome and what came out of Rome. Therefore, these messages are the tastiest, the ones that come out of the book to the Romans, because that's where Paul tossed his soul trying to combat against the apostles to see if they understood grace. Because Paul knew that if they did not understand grace, well, imagine, grace was not going to arrive to Spain, and from Spain here less. In fact, I learned of an historical fact that many years ago, a Christian group was raised. He tells me, the one that read the story, that it was identical to ours, and there were about 20,000, and the Catholics killed the 20,000. They eliminated them. The Inquisition, you remember the Inquisition. And they believed such as we did. They believed that the letters of Paul were the gospel, salvation cannot be lost, exactly the way we believe. That was a reflection of what was to come. But what we teach, it's anti-religious. For an example, you're going to see it here biblically, how Paul opened his heart with Rome, and look how he spoke to them. Chapter 7, verse 7. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? Certainly not. On the contrary, I would have not known sin except through the law, for I would not have known covetousness unless the law had said, you shall not covet. But sin, taking opportunity by the commandment, produced in me all manner of evil desire, for apart from the law, sin was what? Dead. Without the law, sin is what? Dead. And if the law is standing, how is sin? Alive. Yes, for a police officer to find you, he has to show you, listen, you passed the stop sign. And if you look, and if you take a look over there and you look to the law, you can say, no, I didn't cross the stop sign. But the officer tells you, look back. And you think there was not one, but you take a look there and see it. Right there, the law condemns you. I did cross the stop sign. Well, they give you the fine and you're guilty. But if you take a look towards the place pointed to and it doesn't exist, then there's no authority. So then it says here, and I was alive once without the law, but when the commandment came, sin revived. And what happened? And I died. And I found that the very commandment that promised life proved to be death to me. For sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it, what happened? Killed me. That is why it's very rich right there in Rome in chapter 10. Look how important. Chapter 10, verse 4. Verse 4. Chapter 10, verse 4. Look for it in your Bible. You have to leave here convinced that if I gave you the fine, it's because you crossed the stop sign. You saw it and you said, yeah, You're right. Well, if I tell you some, it's because I've shown you what's written. So you don't say that you are founded in commandments of man, nor interpretations of men. And things that I twist, that I try to twist them, but if you see them clear, you have to conclude. Listen to what verse 4 of chapter 10 says. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes. The end of the law is what? And sin without the law is what? Dead. So we are celebrating the death of sin in this knowledge. So then, blessed, where are these sinners? They aren't. Where are the sinners? Today's topic is the death of sin. It is to say, when Christ died, because as the law stands, there's sin. But if Christ died, what happened to the law? He ended the law, so if there's no law, where's sin? And we return to the same thing. What happened for 2,000 years? Because listen, from Catholics, Protestants, all types of Christian groups that came about recently, like the Mormons, the Adventists. Listen, the Adventists, the Sabbath day, they have a big denomination, and their strong points is the law. So if the law is standing, so what exists? Sin. Well, a preacher can preach and accuse you of a sinner. Oh, you are a sinner. Sinner, you must repent. Or if you don't repent, you are condemned. You must keep the Sabbath. And they've eaten that lie. Doctors, many people from all types of walk of life and languages. And why have they have so much success with this? Because it says that sin, taking occasion by the commandment, it deceived me and killed me. It is to say, the law of God was to reveal sin. The law is not sin, but the law enlightens you so you can see sin. So sin deceives you. And it has many people deceived. Listen, it's deceived John, the Apostle John. How did it deceive him? Because after Christ died, the Apostle John says, my children, if someone has sinned, we have an advocate with the Father. It is to say that John was a victim of the deceitfulness of sin. And Peter was also a victim, the Apostle Peter. And James was another victim. And Jude was another victim. If someone is caught in sin, they deceive everyone. So the purpose of this message is to avoid that a dead man deceives you. Someone that's alive deceives you, okay. But a dead man? We are speaking about sin has died. Say, sin has died. And why did it die? Because Christ put an end to the law. And if he put an end, so there's not such a thing such as sinners. And we've always have explained that to misbehave has consequences because everything you sow, you will reap. But we can't call sinner someone that sins. What a contradiction. We can't call a sinner someone that sins because there is not such a thing, such a sin, because that has been a contamination that has been around for 2,000 years. And you say, oh, you know that they found so-and-so committing adultery? Because there's not such a thing as an adulterous man. Because one of the nastiest sin, according to the law, is adultery. There are consequences for committing adultery, but you can't call someone an adulterer. To call you an adulterer, you have to raise the law again, and the law is the one that tells you you're an adulterer. Listen, you have to be very enlightened to understand what I'm saying. Yes, because a woman can say, ooh, I'm not going to bring my husband here. Not here. I'm not going to bring him here because then he's going to take that credit card and he's going to spend it. But though you don't bring him here, if he's going to do it, he's going to do it anyway. Because if you are afraid that he does it to you, then sooner or later he's going to do it because there are insecurities. See why this ministry is a problem? Because it's that you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. What you need is the truth, though you are afraid. People desire fear instead of truth. While I have my children in fear, fear has never done any good to anyone. I prefer the truth, whether things blow up from wherever they explode. Jesus said, you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. But today's topic is to demonstrate how sin, because we have presented that when Jesus died, the church was placed dead to sin. Today, I'm presenting the doctrinal aspect that when Christ died, he ended the law. And when he ended the law, he gave death to sin. So in giving death to sin, Satan died also, because what is a devil doing without sin? Listen, the devil needs tools. The devil needs material in order to work. But then if there's no sin, why would we need a devil that exists? Would that justify the existence of the devil if there's no law to accuse you? We are presenting this from another angle, from different angles, because you have to know this and prepare yourself with this, because we are speaking that one day you're going to be confronted. The only thing, we're just departing, like when a plane is departing and you see it that it's lifting up to get up to 38,000 feet above sea level. That's where the ministry is right now. But once we take off, listen, the airplane, when it's just taken off, just very few people can see it. But when it gets way up in the sky, millions can see it. And this ministry is a ministry that says things that men, out of their wickedness and by deception, has kept hidden for years. Imagine. The Catholic Church with a conference like this would be destroyed, or a Protestant church, because the arguments of a pastor with the fury preachings is sin. The Jehovah's Witness would have none to see, but in order to destroy that system, the airplane has to be up at a very high level. I have to be in public declaring these truths. Imagine if you are confronted at the airport. What church do you go to, sir? What can happen is what happened to Peter. Oh, he speaks like one of them. Oh, and you can deny him. I don't know him. You need to say, no, forgive me. Let's speak clearly. What are you talking about? Let's go to the gospel. Because the reform, that is my job, to bring about a reformation to the world. I'm going to do it, and I know I'm going to fulfill it. Look at what Romans, right there. We're still in the book of Romans. to get to another conclusion in the same topic. Verse 14, look at what it says. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for you are not under what? The law. Why aren't we under the law? Because Christ put an end to the law. I imagine Paul speaking with Rome, and I imagine Peter, John, and James looking, this man has to die. If we don't shut him up, our project is going to fall apart. Well, the Vatican wouldn't have been established. It wouldn't have existed if they would have believed the writings of Paul. It says sin could not be Lord of you. Why? Because you're not under the law, but under grace, leading you to understand that under grace, it can't. But now under law, could have it caused death? Yes. Under the law, leading you to understand that when Christ died, the law ended there. Moses, with his 10 commandments or 613 precepts, ceremonials, or whatever they were, here the law was abolished and a new world has begun, and it was never made known. It was hidden in the darkness of the false apostles. Peter killed Paul in Rome. They didn't allow him to write anything other than the 16 chapters in this book. It's not convenient that he lives. They try to shut me down here in Miami. Part of my family came against me and the association of pastors because they didn't want you to hear what I am teaching. So they conspired against me. We have to shut them up. We have to remove them with contract and all. They threw me out. They kicked me out of the radio. But because God is in the midst of what I'm doing, they could not shut me up. When they woke up, there were many cassettes teaching already spread around the world. Too many had been enlightened. Sometimes they spy and come into our meetings and they say, oh, there are very few. But they have not seen that God has expanded all around the world with this knowledge. And another point I want to make is, how about the ones that have been enlightened? Notice that though sin is death and it has died, but sin once it was alive in this body of humiliation. And since it was present, not only did sin kill you, but it was present. So you are walking around with a corrupt body. Let's look at Ephesians chapter 4, verse 22. It says, with regard to your formal ways of life, as if to say, in the ignorance you lived in the past, but now you're not ignorant. Now you've been enlightened to the truth. With regard to your former way of life, says, put off your old man, or put off the old lady or the young man. It says, put off the old self, which is corrupt. It doesn't say it was corrupt. Though sin has died, you have been freed from the law. You have died to sin, but there is a corrupt body that is corrupt, not that it was. That's why you have to combat here. In order for you, to grow in grace and to govern in your challenging times, you have to understand that you are free, that you are dead to sin, that the devil was destroyed, but that your body is corrupt. That is what the world don't understand. When we say that Satan doesn't exist, he did exist, but he was killed, he was destroyed, but he left the humiliated body corrupt. And that's where thoughts come in. And that's where you have to say, Lord, I felt so good Wednesday with that information. And I said, from here to heaven, I am triumphant. But you woke up the following day and suddenly another body that's corrupt that you know and gave you bad information or something that took place in your matrimony or your kids, your daughter, all kind of things that happen in life. But you have to understand that you are walking around with a corrupt body that you have to learn how to cape. You know what a bullfighter does with the cape, that he's caping the right? The bull, so it doesn't hook him. You have to learn to deal with your body, because that's where the art of this lies. How do you think God functioned till this day? Or do I have a body that's different from yours? The same afflictions that you go through, I go through, and all men go through. Don't you see that we are people that have been affected, deceived, and abused emotionally? We've been abused for 2,000 years with lies, deceived with political nonsense by a corrupt system. So then you have to understand that those deceptions have an effect certain days of the week, maybe Monday, Wednesday, perhaps on Friday, and you have to learn sometimes to tell your spouse, listen, keep silence for 2 or 3 hours because this is just temporary. You have to tell he that's at the bank or your a companion from work, listen, right now, I don't want to speak. I'll talk to you in 4 hours. You know what can happen in 4 hours? That is the wisdom you are using with a corrupt body. Well, don't answer now. Answer later. You're going to answer, but not now. It's later. Or someone calls you from a business that you own. It's your business still open? Yes, but I can't answer right now because they may be a momentary tribulation. Listen, you live in a corrupt world. The one at the bank is corrupt. Your associate is corrupt. The products are corrupt. Everything is corrupt here. That is why Paul says, don't conform to this world. Imagine when the Lord told me, you're going to conquer all of this, the world. What did the body tell me? From where? Where do you think you're heading? What kind of material you think you have if you don't have scissors? And the Lord's been speaking to me, told me many things, but then when I go to the physical corrupt body I possess, there's no response. Everything looks negative. But I know the corruption. Let's read it so you know what you're vested or dressed with. Listen, blessed. Listen what you have as a vestment. 4:22. With regard to your former way of life, put off the old self, which is what? Corrupt. You remember that program, Miami Vice? Miami corrupt, and Miami continues in corruption. And you continue corrupt. What you have renewed is your spirit that's perfect, and your mind you have to renew. Because if you don't renew it, you become a victim of nonsense and stupidities that take place in your life that after 6 months go by, you say, wow, how did I get into this myth? How stupid I was. I shouldn't have answered that way. I should have been silent. I should have held silence. But God has given you that body so that it says that the disciple is not greater than his master. And when he was vested in a body in the likeness of sin, it says, and he had a body that was corrupt. You know how many things happened to him? And he left you a body so you can deal with, so you can cape You think you're better than him? Oh, they dressed you with a vestment of flesh, and now you're going to say, no, I don't have flesh. Things got to go easy. And if they don't, and I need to cry, I cried. And if something wrong happens, where's grace? And if I get sick, where are the angels? No, you have to understand that you have been called to inherited promises. Listen, when I had the accident in Colombia, that was a nasty accident. The first thing the flesh told me was, and where are the angels that you preach? In the very place when they've always assisted me. In that very place, said, shut your mouth. I tell myself to shut up. And I don't deny the Lord in anything. So the scar healed up. You can't even notice it. Those are temporary lies of a corrupt body. And you have to blast. That's why I'm here, so that I am an alert of God telling you, listen, forgive me. If you don't learn to cape, then go elsewhere. Then go to the psychiatrist that he's going to tell you what you're going to have to do is shoot yourself. He's going, listen, he has his limits. Don't you see that the psychiatrists and psychologists have a corrupt body? So when he reads books, well, it says here that you are a failure. Here it says that you don't have hope, that you have a case of schizophrenia, that the Chinese doctor can't even save you. He's being honest. What you need to do is what you're going to do. What is the predestined wisdom that God gave us for? To govern where? In heaven? In heaven, everybody. Here. To govern where? Here. Reigning in life here. Look at what it says, Philippians 3:21. Who has already transformed our body of humiliation. What does it say? Listen, you understand present, past, and future. It says here, who will transform our body of humiliation so that they will be like his glorious resurrected body, according to the operation whereby also he is able to subdue all things. So then, everything is well. Everything is fine, but you have to cape and deal and bring to captivity all thoughts that to the obedience of Christ. And when finances tighten up, you have to also say, hello, this I don't receive. Therefore, let's wait, because one day Jesus said that every day brings about its own problems. How are you going to depend on a book of yoga or of religions from the Orient that work with the flesh? You have to go to the architect of all men in this world that tells you have a corrupt body. And I guarantee you'll be triumphant. I'm not lying to you, because it's that you have a corrupt body. Your body is not good. That's why Paul said there isn't one good. If you think you are good, that is another deception that's walking with you. Or if you think you're a good woman, no. Paul said there is not one human being that's good. Here, everyone has his story. Has stumbled, have had his situations, pleasurable things and non-pleasurable things. We've all gone through them. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Cry? Or go to a spiritualist that tells you, look, I have a son that has problems. What do you recommend? Well, what I recommend is that you put a piece of skin of a serpent on his left foot, that if a butterfly flew into your house, you have good luck. That if a black cat went by, things are bad. I'm telling you, the deceitful flesh can mislead you. I hear so many superstitious comments from people when I travel. It's like when I was a young man, if I got hiccups, my mother used to wet a piece of string and make a form of a cross and lay it on my forehead. Or a scent, right? They would put a scent on your forehead. So it's like the one that's going to buy a pair of pants and he puts it around its neck and he says it fits. That's by size, my love. That's what sizes are for. Or they put the pants from here to here. Well, if it reaches from here to here. You have to go directly to the revelation. You have to go to where the truth, the predestined wisdom is. And God will not fail you. God is not going to fail you. Or do you think that God is going to send me to the world with a bunch of nonsense and things? Another deceiver of all the deceivers in 2,000 years, God is going to give me this ministry. This is the ministry, and he's going to send me without information that has foundation. What I'm showing you is in the gospel, chapter 5, verse 14. But solid food is for the mature. It's for what? Those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. Listen, the senses. You know that people live by what they feel. Oh, it's that I don't feel. So then, if you don't feel, listen, sometimes I don't feel to do certain things. Sometimes, listen, I function with a little pad. At night, I write down the things I'm going to do the following day. 8, 9 things. If I accomplish those 8 or 9 things, I feel very good because I fulfilled all of those things. I've called here, I accomplished this, I've accomplished the other. That's precious. But sometimes that's the plan I've made the night before. But the following day, I get up. I don't feel like moving from here. I don't feel. And you know what I do? I baptize that thought with the exercise of what we've just read, with the discernment. So I don't enter into guilt. Don't you see that you live a fast life if you don't accomplish those 8 things that you wrote down? And when the kids come back from school, you are so hyped. But what's wrong, mommy? No, it's that I am upset. Don't speak to me now. Because you did not accomplish their feelings. So you have to learn to discern and exercise your senses between evil and good. And that develops a conduct. So when your neighbor comes over, you don't take it out on your neighbor. It doesn't change your personality because you've exercised your thoughts in your mind. And suddenly when someone discovers what you've gone through, you're going through all of that? Well, I've never noticed. Well, it's because I'm exercising my senses. But if you don't have exercise, if you have not exercised, you'll drown in a cup of water. You'll get depressed. Quickly, you'll call mother out there somewhere in another country because you could not pay the $60 you owed on a telephone bill. So you call your mother and the 60, you jacked it up to 300. And you begun crying and you convert it into an etc. And the doctor told you that your son is no good for nothing. He's not going to accomplish anything. And you start crying. No, a blessed has to exercise his senses. It says here, look at what it says, verse 14. But solid food, say solid food. We are speaking of a person that's mature, not a person that begins to cry and that he quits. No, I'm not going anymore. what happened? Things were going well. No, I'm not going anymore. And you just stood at halfway. But solid food is for those that have reached maturity. And who are those that reach maturity? Those who, by reason of use, have their senses exercised. Sometimes I see people, that their sons have problems, their husband has problems, the grandma, the granddad. So then, in that moment, it's when they exercise their thoughts. But their mother and dad arrive and they avoid the exercise. So then the son is having problems and the mother wants to resolve it. They want to die. They look for a connection. No, that can't be. Let him confront and exercise his thoughts. Even my life was ruined because my mother was so close to me, and I would get into trouble. I would have I've committed certain crimes and things and they would always call the uncles, this, that, and the other to get me out of it. So I would say, well, let me continue. Who else were they going to call? They were tired of resolving problems for me. So that your son is what? And your daughter is what? Let them confront their situations because they have to exercise their senses. Because if not, you're going to be taking the loads of others. And Paul said, each one will carry their own load. Let the individual confront their situation. Listen, no one helps me. I have to confront the situation. My situations, I have to confront them. And when I confront them, I've exercised my thoughts. So in exercising my thoughts, I can speak to you and comfort you. But you can't continue to escape or allowing that the other covers up and takes you out of. No, you're going to become as an unuseful person. You have to exercise. And when you exercise the senses is when you reach maturity. That's when that person reaches maturity. There, the angels say, we can use him, we can give him this, we can prosper him because he's reached maturity. Good night. Blessed.